Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Mike Ames Recruitment Show. I'm so excited for today. We're going to be talking about the 4 steps that you can do to help recruiters or yourselves breeze through a recession. And I think that we all know next year is going to be a bit dicey. How dicey, we don't know yet, but I think this is going to be hugely important. And to talk about it, we are joined, of course, by the magnificent Mike Ames. Mike, how are you doing?
Got a bit of a sore nose. I don't know what that's all about, but
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Okay. I'll just put that out there. Yeah, okay, yeah. I'm here. I'm good. I'm in great faith. I'm just obviously getting over my holiday, which seems like 100 years ago now, but really pumped up for this, got to tell you. Really pumped up. 2 LinkedIn posts to promote this show. That's how keen I am on it.
He's very excited. And of course, today we have our guest, Simon Lewis. Simon, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. I don't have a sore nose. You'll be pleased to know.
I'm glad we're talking today.
We've got our network end of year dinner this evening. So the moment we finish this, I'm heading off into London with my smart blazer to host that. So yeah, I am all good, thank you. And like Mike, I'm pumped up. It's a good topic, and hopefully we'll cover a lot today.
Just before we press on though, Kirsty, I don't know about you. I'm just going to check my inbox again and my junk and Twitter. But I don't know whether I saw my invitation for the party.
Well, I'm going. I'm leaving.
Well, that's made life awkward.
Now, I was going to tell you how fabulous Simon is and why I invited him on the show today. I'm not going to bother now. Clear off. Getting out the studio, Kirsty. Let's crack on.
No, please do share why Simon's here with us, please.
Right. So obviously Simon, you probably know him. He's been on the show before and he's got his own podcast and whatever. But he is the MD of Members Only, which is a recruitment group. And I wanted to come on the show for 2 reasons. Firstly, it's been around for a long time. I know he only looks 25.
Yeah, you didn't need to stretch the word long, did you? I mean, it's just a while would have been good.
A long time. And he certainly worked through the first recession in 2008, 2010. I'm sure that will come out a little later. That was a trying time for you, I think, wasn't it, Simon? And the second reason is because of his club, because of his Members Only club. He gets to talk to a lot of recruitment firms. So he understands what people are doing and what they're not doing. So I really wanted that expertise in the gig today because this is really important. Today is mega important.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mike. Yeah, look, I mean, I speak to recruiters, as you would imagine, every single day. And they're all from, and the good thing is they're all from different sectors. So there's about 30 different sectors in our network from A to Z. Quite literally, at one point, we had agriculture and zoology. So there was quite a good marketing campaign around it. Yes, Kirsty, that is true. We lost zoology. But what that's allowed me to do is get a broad scope of the market from independents all the way up to multinational organisations. So hopefully my insights from speaking with these people every day will be valuable today.
They definitely will. And what we're going to do, as Kirsty said, we've got 4 topics that we're going to talk around in a kind of a loose free format thing. And the idea is to really get this across of what you can do and why you should consider doing it, because it's like really important. And before we do that, though, I did just want to take a moment. People are saying that, oh, well, you can talk yourself into a recession. That's just nonsense. You can't. It comes or it doesn't come. And as business owners, it's very important. One of your major jobs, in fact, doesn't matter whether you're in recruitment or what you're in, as a business owner, it's your job to have your head held high, looking for threats coming in your direction. The bigger and more dangerous the threat, the bigger your mitigation against it must be, your preparation effectively. The smaller and less harmful, then the smaller your preparation can be, down to, if it happens, I'll deal with it. The recession is very much one of those former. You are ultimately, and this is a mental thing, a mindset thing, really, you have to see yourself as a business owner who does recruitment, not a recruiter who happens to own a recruitment business. Now, the problem with this is that even people in largish recruitment companies are still basically recruiters. Now is the time to be a business owner, very much so. And I think it's incredibly important to make that shift. We can talk about this till we're blue in the face and we haven't got the time, but certainly one of them is around this, planning for things that may or may not happen, but if they happen, they could be very serious. It's not about denial or talking yourself into anything. That's just nonsense. That's just LinkedIn babble. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Question is, are you going to be ready for it or not? And that's what this show is all about. And that's why I'm pumped up. And that's why Simon's on the show today with us.
Yeah, and I think that leads really nicely into moving on to what step one is. So we've got these 4 steps. And as we go through, by the way, if you've got any questions, feel free to pop them in and I'll bring them up to Mike and Simon. So Mike, let's talk about step 1.
Okay, so this is about making your team more stable and more productive. And one leads to the other. So recruiters have a habit of having quite a high attrition rate in their teams. I'll tell you now, you can never work at maximum productivity while you've got people coming and going all the time. It just isn't possible, because either people are being trained or orientated, or they're being let go and they're taking a bunch of your business with them, or whatever it is, right? It's not acceptable. So in the recession, above all else, what you must do is stabilize your team. Pay higher base salaries and lower commission, if you will. Make sure that go around and have proper one-to-one time, and make sure there's any problems, dig it out. Give them all their own personal development plans so that they know there's something going forward. Commit to improving them. Do what you need to do to make them happy and stable and productive. And that's your first step. Now, can I ask you, Simon? Obviously, you've got a lot of people in your group, in your members only group. What's your take on that, on the stability of a team and the well-being of the people in it?
Yeah, well, it's going to be an interesting year, I think, where that's concerned, because retention, anyway, it should be at the top of everybody's to-do list when you're running any business, but particularly one that's as fluid as recruitment tends to be. And we've spent a long time, nearly 2 years now, with attracting and trying to retain the best staff, as you should do at any point anyway. But you're quite right, Mike, when you talk about productivity, having people coming and going in businesses, you're never going to be operating at anywhere close to where you need to be. So that is absolutely true. I think what I'm looking forward to might be the wrong word here, but some of these inflated figures that people have been getting for the jobs in our thing have just been off the charts, and that isn't productive either. And I know you're going to come on to a point, Michael, we can discuss something later on about how you can make people more profitable. Well, overpaying is definitely not the way to do it. And we're in a different market now. People won't be able to be demanding whatever they like, it would seem. You know, looking at it from a fairly close parapet view, people tended to get whatever they wanted, whatever measure of that of what they were doing as a job. So that, I hope, will settle things a little bit. But retention, you cannot afford to have people just ducking off and going elsewhere. And every single year, of the 40,000 recruiters there are in the UK, allegedly, January and February are always the highest spikes for new businesses setting up. You do your best to keep your staff so they don't go and do that, would be my thought.
Well, I think just to talk about that for a second, in last week's show we had a debate about 360 versus factory model. The attrition rates in factory model recruitment companies is significantly lower, and I don't want to go over old ground. If you want to know why that is, check out last week's show. But I certainly think part of it is you ask people to do things that they're not very good at, not comfortable with doing, but they have to do it because it's in the job title. In the new world, if somebody doesn't want to do something and they're not very good at it, but they're good at other things, we'll keep them and rejig their role. It's absolutely fine to do that. If someone's rubbish at bringing in vacancies, for example, well, okay, all right then. So get someone else to bring the vacancies in, or recut things so that they work on accounts, or do something. Because if you get them to do stuff they're not very good at, let me tell you now, what's going to happen over the next 6 months is it's going to get more and more difficult, for example, to get in new vacancies and new clients. So if they're rubbish now, they're going to be well out of the depth now. And they jump, they think, I'll go to a new place, it'll be better, because it won't be. It's nonsense, really. So I think paying people higher basics is fine. I think splitting down roles so people do what they're good at, and just finding out, why, if people are unhappy, why are they unhappy? Tell me why. If there's something I can do, I will. We're all in for a rough ride. Stay here with us. Let's work through this together, but I want you to be happy. I want you to really be comfortable. Tell me what the problem is and I'll fix it. Just that kind of one-to-one conversation, I kid you not, makes a massive difference. No edge, no angle, just tell me and I'll work it out for you. But the idea is to stabilize the team, reduce the attrition substantially. And you can do that and make a big difference.
Yeah, I agree. And there's no room for square pegs in round holes, I think, is kind of where the nub of this. And for the smaller organisations, many of whom are independent organisations, solopreneurs, if you want to use that expression, they're not good at absolutely everything. None of us are. So what about the outsourcing piece, which I know, Mike, you're quite hot on as well. And outsourcing has definitely grown exponentially over the last 2 years or so. But for those people that haven't experienced that just yet, maybe now is the time. And quite importantly, right?
Yeah, we're a big fan of it. Most of our clients there were encouraging them to build virtual teams. But I think just on that point, that's a really good point, actually, Simon. You can have a team of one. It's like you. Well, that's okay. You've got to make yourself massively productive. Okay, you're not going to leave or anything, but productivity is about getting the most out of what you have. Stable team will help that. The other thing is to make sure that you see yourself as a unit of work. You can only do so much in a week. You can only do so much in a month. You have to maximize what you get from that by being very selective on the type of roles that you work. If you have a choice, go for the ones that are easier to fill and generate the biggest fees, the combination of those two. Trying to deal with clients that are reasonable, not the ones that dick you around, the ones that actually look at your CVs and come back, and try and make sure that your productivity ratios, CVs, submissions, interviews, offers and placements, is as sharp as you can make it to be. And that's down to training, and it's down to looking at the numbers. It's down to being very selective. That's what productivity means. It means getting the most out of what you have. You can even work out, I did this earlier, actually, for another one of my clients this morning, an average rate per day that you earn. You can do it like a day rate. The idea is to get that day rate up.
Yeah.
Okay. And that day rate comes to the amount of time you spend, what you cost, and what you bring in. Lift the day rate. Be obsessed with it, because we aren't going to have, I don't think we're going to have the gift of too many vacancies out there that we can squander, or time that we can just burn up doing things that we could do better if we thought about it. You've got to be on your game 100%.
And on that, I know I could listen to, we should have done a webinar. You have to move on to point 2 now, which I think is very nicely led on from what you just said, Mike, because step 2 is to have a stream of good vacancies to work on. So can we talk a little bit about what that means?
Okay. I'll just kick off, and then this is some big input from Simon on this. To me, it means 2 things. It means proper business development, strategic business development, not just tactical business development. I'll explain the difference between the two, and it's very important to understand that difference because of what's going to happen. And the other thing is exceptional client care, because when in a recession, often what happens is that clients will, on average, use half as many agencies as they did when demand was outstripping supply. So you've got to make sure you're north of that cut, because if you're not, it's not like anyone sacks you or anything. It's just the vacancies dry up. Don't get them anymore because they're putting them to other agencies. So it's really important to make sure that your customer care is exactly where it needs to be, massively so. Business development, what people refer to in recruitment as business development, is what we call tactical business development. It's predominantly vacancy scraping, gives a job, or send an email, gives a job, or it's specking, hey, I've got this great candidate. It's tactical BD. It's been around forever. It works really well when demand is higher than supply, massively so. But it doesn't work very well at all when supply outstrips demand. Tactical business development of that nature is not as effective. And for some of you, it just won't work at all. Strategic business development, which is building relationships, proper relationships in a structured way with companies that can issue vacancies, takes longer, it's harder, but it's much more certain and much more secure, and it works regardless of the economic cycle that we're in. So please begin to not base your growth or survival on tactical business development, because there's a very good chance it won't work in the way that it's worked since 2010.
Simon, what do you say about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, an absolutely valid point. I mean, it sort of stands to reason, I suppose, that you want to be working on the best roles as you would always do. I've got a real thought on this, Mike, and interested to hear your take on it. I was one of the sort of lead protagonists steering the good ship recruitment down a retained business model and out of pure contingency for all the benefits that holds. And I do wonder whether or not, given what we're likely to be experiencing next year, whether or not in actual fact that was not necessarily misguided, but if somebody has gone from pure contingent to pure retained, for example, or pure project work, whatever it is you want to look at it, is it now time perhaps to sort of, recess that a little bit and maybe bring back a bit of that contingency, or do you not really think it matters so long as your client care and control is absolutely top notch?
That's very interesting, really. I think there are a number of factors. Do you tend to do one-off placements, or do you tend to work for a client on more than one vacancy at a time? So that's quite important, because if they know you and like you and respect what you do for them, they're more likely to give you at the very least exclusive. We're always big fans on exclusive, really, rather than retain, because a lot of people try and do retain, but they're not geared up to it, really. Ends in a mess. Exclusive is much better, I think, for most people. And the chances are they'll continue to give you exclusive. Well, of course, when the market flattens, exclusive is good enough. You'll be fine with exclusive. You'll find the people in the 4 weeks or 6 weeks that you get absolutely fine. So I would certainly say that. The second thing, it's quite interesting, because when I've seen a lot of people sell these products that they've built, retained and exclusive and good, better and best and all that stuff, when I've seen them do it, they're almost selling the product. It's like, well, hey, you've got this or this, what would you like? That's not the way to do it. And when we productize for our clients, we spend time building the products, but it's no big deal. Productization is just an encapsulation process to encapsulate what you do. What matters is how you sell it. And I believe even in a flatter market, if you sell on the basis of, well, okay, in this condition, if this is the thing you're looking for in the market that you're looking for in it, then you should do this. If it's this, then you should do this. And if it's this, then you should do this. In the past, people were taking retained or exclusive because they had no choice. If you can find someone, you can have it. That's probably been a little unkind, I suppose, to people that offer those services. But there's certainly the clients were taking it. Now they're going to have a lot of choice. So if you're not really going to drill down on why it's a benefit to them to give you an exclusive or retained deal, you won't get it. Whereas in the past, you probably would. So I think that's a difference. But the answer to your question, keep going, yeah. Certainly exclusive. I would zero in completely on exclusive. It's less of a commitment from the client. But you still get that clear path where you can get the people and make the money. And I think you're much more likely to get those.
Yeah, I'm much more likely to increase your daily rate charge, which I love, by the way. I talk about with people about it all the time. What's your daily rate? And people they don't look at it. Recruiters don't tend to look at it like that, do they? And when you do focus on that, it's very interesting to see where you are in the scheme, and then you start looking at vacancies and go, what's the point in working out? It's not going to achieve my daily rate, or it's certainly not going to help, grow it. Or actually, that's a great exclusive role that absolutely will help my daily rate. I think it's a great way of looking at it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean the three factors always to consider. Number one, the fee. Number two, the ease of placement, how easy it is going to be to find that. And number three, the basis that you had it. Was it contingent? Was it retained? Or was it an exclusive? And you muddle those three up, and there is an optimum size for type and for the ease of finding these people. And that's the sweet spot. And you've got to figure it out for yourselves. Go for as much of that as you can. Make it as attractive as you can for your clients. But too many people are selling what they want to sell rather than what people need to buy. And there is a difference between the two.
Interesting. We've actually got a question, Mike, that I'd like to sort of find out your answer from, which we've got a question from another Mike. Surely working on retained basis is far better business model for the business owner. So as a business owner looking at this, you're still going to want retained, are you not?
100%, yeah, 100%. It's just that in the market that we're moving into, I mean, retained, this has happened before. This isn't the first wave of retained. It's happened before. It's because there's a sustained higher demand than there is supply. So you say, well, look, I will find you someone, but you have to give it to me retained. Well, okay, then I need somebody. Yeah, struggling elsewhere. You do it then. When supply evens up, maybe there's more supply than demand, or it's even Stevens. There's no need to do that. People are coming through with good CVs. People are speccing really good CVs in because there's more people about. So it's kind of harder to convince a client that a retained is the way forward, even though, for what it's worth, I happen to believe it is better for them. If you can't articulate that, then I'm afraid you won't get it.
Do you, quickly, I know you want to probably move on, Kirsty, do you think, with that in mind, Mike, that there will be a propensity for clients to consider that working retained is no longer as valuable as it might have been a few months ago, because the expectation is that there are going to be other potential candidates on the market that they would not get sight of if they go their jobs retained, which I know I've made that sound really basic, but I don't.
It's true. Yeah, it's a perceptional issue. You know, unemployment's likely to double, but that won't be like full of really, really good people. They're the ones that stay the longest and the last out. So mostly. So I don't really think that the perception will be the same as reality for sure, but that's their perception. But mostly it's because when people productized last year, mostly this year and last year, it was so easy to sell. They didn't really have to think about how they were selling it. Well, say easy, you know what I mean by that, relatively easy to sell. Whereas next year, you're going to have to really learn to sell your products. You'll still get it, but you're going to have to learn to sell it properly. Not just you want good, better, or best. Why don't you take best? It's like, what is this, 1991 again? No, you've got to do a bit better than that, I think.
Okay, so I do think it's time to move on to step 3. And I like step 3 because I think it's something that is really tangible that people can do. And step 3 is to stock up your war chest with cash. Can you just explain what war chest means?
It's actually called disposable cash in bank. So you've got a cash in bank, but some of that money isn't yours because it belongs to the tax man or because you've got to pay bills for it, whatever. Disposable cash in bank simply means if you wanted to, you could draw it out and go and buy a Ferrari. It's your money, right? So it's disposable cash in bank. First of all, if you don't do it already, start tracking your disposable cash in bank, obviously, bound to say that, but really. And then what you need to do is build that up. My preference is 6 times your monthly cost. So if your monthly cost is 10 grand, you need 60 grand in the bank, right? I mean, I know for some people that might be a stretch. Probably should have put some money aside this year, but it doesn't matter. We are where we are. So do the best you can, is what I say. You don't have to starve your business. You don't have to stop spending everywhere. That will just choke your business. But you do have to be mindful of committed spend. You know, there's long-term committed spends coming up that you sign on the dotted line and committed for 3 years. Try and avoid signing those if you can, for sure, or at least cut in a deal where you can get out of the contract if you need to. And just try your best to get that money up. Don't draw it out and pay for that big holiday or pay for that car. Leave it in the business because the business might well need it.
Can I put you in the role, Mike, of soothsayer here for a moment? So the people that I speak with, my members, almost all of them, and there are some anomalies, like always in these situations, are saying that processes with their clients are slowing down. They haven't said they've stopped at all, but they said they're slowing down. So interview processes might be taking a little longer, or the job that was definitely coming through tomorrow might actually now be on hold for a week or a month or two or what have you. But I do wonder if, you know, you could foresee and look into your crystal ball. When do you think it is that people, by what point, I suppose I'm asking, do you think people will need to have that residual cash in their bank?
You're referring to me as Mystic Mike, because if
Mystic Mike, I didn't realise it was a thing. If I'd known that, I would have called you Mystic Mike.
It wasn't until about 30 seconds ago. Yeah, I mean, obviously none of us know. It's a crystal ball. None of us know. But if you look to the past to predict the future, what will probably happen, probably in January or February, is because it's starting to slow down. You're right. That slowing down will speed up, and then it could be that first quarter it just falls off a cliff, or what we hope is it kind of goes like that. That's what we hope. But either way, I think that it'll become tougher in the first quarter of next year. So best case scenario, you've got a couple of months. Worst case, you've got 4 months to do it. So it is now about just trying to assemble as much capital as you possibly can, because you may well need it. If you don't need it, well, then you can draw it out and buy a Ferrari if you want to. But I think, what do you think, Simon? What's your opinion?
You know, I firmly agree with you. I just wonder, you know, and it comes back to that thinking like a business owner, doesn't it, rather than a recruiter? And I refer to the pandemic period where we had all that time to consider what our businesses looked like. And we took a more holistic view. And most business owners, recruitment agency owners that I know, did just that. Many of them, of course, absolutely flew and didn't just survive that pandemic. They thrived and have now got businesses treble the size that they had beforehand. But I wonder how many of those actually took stock of what you've just said there. Obviously, I wouldn't have known before you said it, but and actually did stock their cupboards with cash. I don't know the answer to that question because it wasn't something that I'd looked at.
It's not traditionally the thing that recruiters do, is it really?
No, exactly that. It isn't. But now what we're saying is that although it might not be traditionally what you do, maybe now is the time to start thinking about it.
What I can say is, Flair, we have got 12 months money. So we got 12 months just in case, because I am not going through bloody 2020 again. 2020 wasn't even a recession.
No.
You know,
no, it wasn't a recession, but many of the things that you would do now in a recessionary period, we did over that, that unprecedented.
A lot of things is like shrinking a team. So, for example, if you've got people there that you don't think are cutting it, and normally you would leave them there because they're going to generate revenue, they probably won't be in 3 months' time. Cut them now. Get rid of them now. Cut the team down to what you need it to be now. Get it done. Just do it and be done with it. So I'm not saying cut out people. In 2020, people are sacking swathes of people. Not saying that. I'm saying those people are in doubt anyway. Do it now. Save their salary. Whack that in the war chest. You may as well be done with it. I know it's harsh and everything. Christmas coming up, but this is about your business, not about
survival.
It's not personal. It isn't.
Survival.
Okay. I know you want to get it. I can see you want to move on, Kirst.
I do. I've got that face, haven't I? I should have like a big red sign across the top. So I think now's a good time to move on to the final step, which is a bit more it's easy for interpretation, I guess. Be at the top of your game. What do you mean by be at the top of your game?
Well, it's really about quality. So your service levels, for example, have to be as high as they can be. By that, I mean the way in which you treat your clients, the professionalism that you show with them, what your clients think of you. So a VOTC to see what they think of you. And that whole, when I use those guys, I really like them. When I use those guys, they get people, but whatever. If there's only half as many suppliers being used, it's the ones that with the good service levels that will survive. So really drill down on whatever it is that you use to measure quality and make sure you understand what it is now and have a plan to lift it. I know it sounds pretty vague, but you have to do this. And it's in two areas. It's in service levels and it's in the quality of the candidates. So the service levels is how easy it is to you to get the candidates in front of someone. And the candidate quality, obviously, is how applicable they are to the brief. And to a certain extent, how much your clients enjoy, and I use the word properly, enjoy working with you. Are you a pleasure to work with, or are you a necessary evil? Because I'm telling you now that the necessary evils off to the Russian front if it really turns bad, and you want to make the cut. My advice would be, by the way, on this is to find out, is to ask your clients, if you only used half as many agencies, would we be one of them? Please be honest. You may as well know, because you've still got time to do something about it. Whereas, and it's a hard question to ask because you might not know the answer, but if you do and you think, well, okay, not where I need to be, the next question obviously is, what do I need to do to make the cut then? And then at least you know, it's no big deal. But not knowing and shoving your head up your arse is the recipe to disaster. You can quote me on that if you like.
Simon, what do you think about Mike's statement there?
Well, the last part particularly.
So
what do I think? Well, I think here's the sort of, I'm imploring here, I suppose, as much as anything. I speak a lot about high performance and elite performance and leadership. And I think one thing that many business owners, not necessarily recruitment, but obviously in the context of what we talk about now, forget to do a lot of the time, or it's just not on their radar, which I don't know which is worse, is invest in their people and invest in themselves. And when we're talking about leading and running at optimum performance, it's my personal view that you cannot possibly do that if you are working in a silo, and what you did to that yesterday is the same thing as you're doing today, for multiple reasons, all of which have got their own show, Kirsty, so we can put those up for next year. But I don't understand why people don't do it. I don't understand why people don't invest in their businesses. Now, we've just spoken about getting a war chest together, but that does not mean that you can't continue or even start, in some instances, many, investing in your people. They're more likely to stay. And what about you as a leader? What are you actually going to be doing and offering if you are only offering the same thing as you did yesterday? So, and it's multifarious, that. So, leadership coaching, investing in tech. And I don't mean that particularly. I think that's an obvious thing. But, you know, getting your people to go on courses, getting them upskilled, getting them to think more like leaders, perhaps. So if you've got a succession plan and you've got managers in their team, why are you calling them managers? Call them leaders. Treat them like that, and they will come with you. And when you're talking about getting people to form, and sometimes it's those marginal gains, that for me is, you know, you can tell I'm quite passionate about this, but that is how you, in my opinion, will ride a storm, any storm.
I agree. I know Kirsty wants to close up now, but I'll just finish with this. I agree entirely with that. I think you should still invest in your people. It's the only way that you'll get them to deliver more. You won't get it by shouting at them, right? That's not, fear doesn't work. Threats don't work. You've got to make them better at what they do. You've got to equip them with better tools. You've got to give them training and coaching. And mostly you've got to focus them where you know the most money is, not necessarily the easiest money, because there's a difference between those two. And they won't necessarily go to where they need to go. And it's your job to make sure that they work on what they should work on and they're as efficient as possible. Because if you do that, then you will be top of your game. You will manage to make the cuts if there is one. You will manage to max out that profit per person. And ultimately, you will breeze through that recession that comes our way.
I think that's fantastic. I think you guys, between the two of you, have done my summary for me. So I'm not going to do a summary today because I think you've both just encapsulated it perfectly. What I am going to come to you in a second to ask for your top tips, something that you think people should do in order to help ride out the inevitable recession. But first, Mike, let's talk about who we've got next week. We've got Michelle talking about maxing out your fees.
Hey, it's like we throw this show together, isn't it, really? Yeah, so I'm saying to you, you need to max out your fees. Guess who we've got next week? We've got Michelle Thumer. She's an independent recruiter on her own, solopreneur, does tremendously well with her fee structures and how she gets those fees. She's also, I think, a regional director for the team group. So maybe those guys will be on with us as well. I don't know. But she's going to come on and tell us how she does that. And it's brilliant. Really looking forward to that.
Okay. Fantastic. Very much looking forward to. I hope you guys can come. So for Mike, I'm going to come to you first. Then we're going to round off with the glory that is Simon. So Mike, what's your top tip for somebody to do after watching today's show?
The problem is there's so many. So I'm going to start with a simple one. If you don't do it already, measure your profit per head, your profit per employee across the board. Measure that because it can only go one way. Whatever you do, it's got to go north. So obviously reducing the headcount slightly will do it. Making yourself more efficient will do it. Working on better vacancies will do it. All of those things will work. Lifting your fees will do it. Profit per head is the thing that will help you sail through, not sail through necessarily, but steer, navigate through the difficult times we have ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Simon, what would yours be?
Mine would be referring back to, I think, one of the points right at the very start of the show, Kirsty. Think like a business owner, not like a recruiter.
Fantastic.
Yes,
yeah,
I'll echo that. I wish I'd have had that one now.
Can't. Simon had it. Simon stole it, and he's our guest, so he gets it.
That's because I'm a guest. I got that privilege, didn't I? Thank you, Kirsty.
Yeah, I did that. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So it ends to me to say thank you very much to everybody who's watched. It's been great having you with us. Thank you to Mike for just being Mike. And Simon, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your knowledge with us as we've gone through. And
I'll echo that, Simon. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always.
As always. And thank you very much for having me on. It has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Fantastic. See you guys next week.